This is Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare from Rock 94.7.
Welcome to 13 Questions on Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare. Tonight's guest has music in his blood. His father, Rick Wakeman, is a founding member of the legendary progressive rock group Yes. Today, our guest currently plays keyboards for Ozzy Osbourne. On top of that, his new band, Headspace, is releasing their debut album, I Am Anonymous, on May 22nd. It is my pleasure and privilege to say, Adam Wakeman, welcome to Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare.
Thank you very much, Terry. I'm terrified.
Well, that's what we go for on this show, brother. Now, Adam, for a band featuring a keyboardist with your last name and resume, your debut album is very heavy guitar-oriented. Have you always been drawn towards that heavier metallic sound?
I think I'm kind of a frustrated guitar player. I was always, keyboards is my first instrument. And I started sort of playing guitar out of necessity, really, when I was about 21, 22 years old, when a gig came up where I needed to learn to play acoustic guitar. So I sort of learned very quickly that if I played two instruments, I got more work. So that was kind of where my love for guitar came into it. And I always loved sort of Zeppelin and early Sabbath stuff as I was growing up, which is obviously very guitar orientated. And with this band in particular, we didn't really have any preconceived ideas of how it was going to sound. It could have turned out like Keane. It could have turned out like a number of different bands, but it was pretty clear early on that it was going down the progressive rock route, and obviously with Pete Rinaldi on guitar, it kind of, the guitar is very prominent.
Well, with that being said, with that progginess that's all over Headspace's I Am Anonymous, I mean, was that bound to happen given your musical pedigree?
Well, I think we didn't want, when we originally got together, we got into a rehearsal room and I told everybody to arrive with no preconceived ideas or riffs or anything, and just let's get into a room and see how it turned out. I mean, that was, in hindsight, probably quite naive of me to think that it wasn't going to go in any direction other than kind of prog. But I wanted to just sort of make sure that it was the band started at the same in the same direction, and that people weren't coming from different ideas, and that way it developed naturally and sort of evolved the way it did. There are a lot of keyboards on the album, but it's not, for me. It's more about the sum of the parts and making the best album the right way, rather than making it too keyboard heavy, for example. I mean, it's about the album as a whole. It's not about the kind of individual musicianship. From what I see, anyway, I think it's this is a band album, and I think it sounds that way.
The album's title, I Am Anonymous, and that is a very evocative title. Tell us what it means to you.
Well, I mean, it kind of came around by mistake. We were trying for, I'm not lying when I say years, to think of what we were going to call this album, because we've been working on it for over 3 years. And it wasn't until, we had an EP that we released in 2007 called I Am, which was, which didn't really have it was kind of I am ... So it was kind of, it was invoking kind of, it was something, we are something, but we weren't really quite sure what we were at the time. With this album, which is a more of a concept album, the title was The Last Thing to Come, really. We kind of spent a long time, the album concept is kind of basically about all of us as individuals and our relationship with humanity, and the battles we have throughout our kind of lives. And we try to reflect that with events and current events of what happens in the world we live in. Now, the title kind of came, as I say, a little bit by accident. I think it was Damien, the singer, said, how about I Am Anonymous? Because it's about us all as individuals, but it's not directly about anybody. So it kind of works, and especially with the cover, we've got the back of the girl walking into the kind of war-torn landscape. That's kind of, it's the animicity of, the back of somebody as they're walking away as well. It's kind of, it just seemed perfect. It was the last thing to tie the whole album together.
This could either really give a great deal of joy, or it could bring the wrath of the hacker group Anonymous down upon you. So, I mean...
I'm just waiting now for our website to just be shut down.
Exactly. Either that, or at your first show, there could be an entire crowd full of people in Guy Fawkes masks. So, I mean, it could go either way for you.
I'll, take the rough with the smooth. That's what I say.
There you go. You're listening to 13 Questions on Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare. Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare is a 3-hour metal show heard every single Saturday from 9 until midnight on Rock 94.7, 102.9 in central Wisconsin, and online worldwide at rock947.com. Our interview with keyboardist Adam Wakeman of Ozzy Osbourne's band and his brand new band Headspace continues. Now, we were talking about how I Am Anonymous is such an evocative title. There's another title that really stood out on the album, Daddy Effing Loves You. Now, my question is, was that title inspired by your dad, or was it inspired by listening to Ozzy talk to his kids?
Oh, do you know what? No, none of the above, I'm afraid. It was actually from a conversation that Damien had with a soldier that he used to know and live near in Guildford in the UK, and there was a big army barracks there, and he said there was a guy he was talking to, and he was explaining the difficulty of being away on a foreign tour with the army, and coming back and trying to rebuild the kind of family life, and the frustrations of his kids growing up without him being present. And I think as the evening went on, Damien recalls this story where the guy, becomes increasingly more frustrated, and obviously, having a few drinks as well, he kind of got a bit more passionate about what he was saying. And one of the things he said was, he's got his kid in his arms, and he's just kind of crying, looking at his child, saying, "Daddy effing loves you." And it was such a strong line. Damien was worried that it was going to be too kind of offensive to have on the album, but when you hear the story, I think it does conjure up a lot of imagery, especially when you listen to the track as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's a bit more heartfelt than imagining old Ozzy going, "Hey, Daddy fucking loves you, everybody." Yeah.
When we played in London about a couple of years ago, I took my 7-year-old daughter along to the show, and I just completely forgot about the amount of swearing that goes on during the show.
Oh!
And it wasn't, just before the show started, I took her to one side and I just said, "Now, you're going to hear some words that you haven't heard before, and I never ever want to hear you say them." And she said, "Yes, that's fine, Daddy." And then the next day, when I took her to school, she ran up to the teacher and she said, "I went to see Ozzy Osbourne last night. He said, 'I want to see you all go.'" And my heart nearly stopped. And she said, "I want to see you all go blinking crazy." So she's wise enough to substitute the swear words, which means she can come to any other Aussie shows.
Well played, well played. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and if they listen to Daddy's show on the radio, they need to take a few things and censor them a bit when they go to school, for sure, for sure. I'm right there with you. Now, Adam, you've been touring with Ozzy since 2004. By your estimate, how many times have you played the intro to Mr. Crowley?
How many times have I played it right? Or we must have done. We did about 100 shows on the Black Rain tour, and we probably did about 90 shows on the Scream. So I would say it's getting up to a couple of 100 times now.
I would guess so. Now, here's the question, though. Have you ever been tempted to freestyle it and play, like, Take Me Out to the Ball Game in the middle of it, just to throw the crowd?
The temptation is huge. When that is just a moment that is just keyboards, the temptation to do something else is huge. It's a little bit like the devil on your shoulder. You've got the angel on one side, devil on the other. The angel's saying, make sure you bring the choir part in at the right time in the middle, and the devil on the other side's going, just launch into the Six Wives of Henry VIII by your old man.
Yeah, play chopsticks. Do it. Do it.
It's like it's a little bit like when you're somewhere and there's a big red button that says do not press. All you want to do is press that button. It's a little bit like that when you're on stage and there's 20,000 people. There's a little moment of you just think, I could do whatever I like here. But ultimately you'd only get to do it once because you'd be on a plane home.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what keeps this show on the rails is the need for gainful employment.